We are now about to stream live on Facebook. Tang, I don't know what I could say about this. I really don't know that much about this. But if there is something that you would like to present, it would really be wonderful. But the way that we operate is that we actually make specific proposals, and you'll see that in a moment. But the point is that someone actually has an idea to raise awareness about, or has a solution they want to propose, and then it's about building support for that solution. Do you have a solution or an idea in mind pertaining to that?
Basically, I think artificial intelligence have to take into account the social emotional side of people. Because I think, for example, artificial intelligence can write good grammar and good factual articles, but they cannot express emotion like humor, sadness, happiness. And I think we still want writers with emotion. So I don't think AI is going to take away the jobs of the masses, because AI doesn't have the social emotional qualities that we want.
Okay, so now you're talking about jobs. Now things are getting a little bit more interesting, coming a little bit more into my territory. But okay, let's talk about this. Well, you know what? Okay, let's give it about 5 more minutes. There were quite a bit more people who RSVP'd to this meeting. Let's give them 5 minutes, or just until we wrap up with this discussion, or at least maybe reach some kind of point before we actually get started. So it seems that you are concerned not so much with intelligence, but ensuring that people have jobs.
Yes, people have jobs, so that people have jobs.
I don't think that our goal is to protect jobs. I think our goal is to make sure that people have a purpose in life, that people have an income, that they're able to sustain themselves and provide for themselves, and um, uh, for their loved ones. But that doesn't necessarily mean that people have to have jobs. So I think we need to clarify that issue.
Well, even as a species being in Marx systems, a species being wants to work, whether they are paid through some kind of social benefit or some kind of retirement income. They still want to express themselves as species being. So
Can you clarify a species what?
have you read Marx's work?
Read what?
Karl Marx.
No.
Oh, okay. At an advanced stage of capitalism, society will become more socialized because machines will be taking away most of the jobs. Then the people have nothing to do, but they still need to be consumers. So wherever they get their income from, it doesn't matter. They still have to express themselves through work.
Well, that's and this is why I can't wait till we get started, because I think as you'll find out, our meetings are actually real work. Doing democracy is real work. So
yes,
people educating themselves about issues, about about processes, about economics, like that's a lot of work. there's a lot of work to be done in that, and people should be doing it, but most people are completely neglecting it. So I think we should have a universal basic income, and I think the universal basic income would allow for people to actually be productive in just by being citizens, just by being participants in society, participating in community. There's always work to be done. There's always things for people to find purpose in. Actually, I think people need to have a really community. Actually, what people are really missing, especially in modern, large-scale societies, people don't have a real sense of community. Religion, to some extent, and religious communities kind of provide for that, but they only provide for that, like churches, but they only provide for that for people who are willing to believe their bullshit. I mean, I hate religion. I love church. I hate religion. So, but I think people need church, not religion. So when people leave their religion, they leave their church, and that's not good. People actually need that community. So, because there's a lot of work to be done in that community, and it's valuable work, and people forget that. So anyways, there's plenty of work, always, like community building, politics, there's all kinds of work. People need to be educated for it. They need to learn, but and I think if people have a universal basic income, that would allow for them to function in those regards.
I agree.
Yeah.
Do you read about Andrew Yang's proposal for funding the universal basic income?
No, I have not read Andrew Yang's proposal.
He proposes a tax system which is based on existing social security funding, and he has supporters like what's his name, Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, to fund these two capitalists are supportive of the universal basic income.
Great, maybe they can support that idea in Agora. Okay, we are at 10:11 on my clock. To me, this is a very interesting topic, but let us continue with the meeting, with the process here. And I'm sure that some people are going to show up late, they always do, but well, we waited long enough. I want to share my screen here for the opening notes. And this is to kind of set the stage, especially for new people, let new people know like kind of what to expect. And would somebody like to volunteer to read the opening notes? Otherwise,
yeah, sure, I can. This is Jennifer's partner. Citizen Assembly opening notes. Okay, so number one, we maintain the right to freedom of speech. This does not include hate speech or threats of violence. Number two, be mindful of everyone's time. You will have more than one chance to speak. Time limits may be imposed. As individuals, we are partial. As a group, we are impartial. We are here to develop our own philosophies and to assist others in doing so. Number four, we are here to do politics, not to comment on politicians doing politics. Take a stand for ideas, not faces. 5, this community is what you make it. Criticism is cheap. What we want is better ideas. Speak up. Number 6, focus on advancing your best ideas, not winning every argument. Be strategic. 7, to be presentable, an idea must be written as plain text document, published for others to see, and copy left for others to use. We use the agorailp.org to conveniently and efficiently share our ideas. Do you want me to just go through all of them? Is that fine? Okay.
Unless you want to take a break and let somebody else finish, it's fine.
Sure. I'll take a break because I want to eat this taco.
All right. Thank you very much for getting us this far. We follow a specific format. The presenter presents an idea, 11 minutes maximum. We measure the agreement with the idea. That's a quick show of hands. We measured the support in Igora for that idea. That's also a quick show of hands. We deliberate in strict order of claim turns by raised hands. We conclude with uninterrupted closing remarks by each participant. Number 9, respect your host. The Citizen Assembly Network is inclusive of everyone, but the host of any particular meeting has the right to dismiss any participant whom they are unable to handle. 10, we need leaders to organize more meetings. We will help you. We are here to empower one another. 11, help us grow. Share our meeting information on social media to make democracy available to others. 12, help us help you. Use the chat to share any information, resources that you think are important. 13, make connections with other participants. We stay after the meeting to socialize and to answer questions. And now for the introductions, I suggest using this format. Of course, if you want to say a little bit more, a little bit less, that's perfectly fine. And we have Giannis joining us. Welcome. Right in time for introductions. And I'm going to share this in the chat just so people can use it as reference. Ilya, would you like to take the lead and run us through the introductions?
So should I start calling on people, or should I start
Yes.
with myself?
If you would start with yourself, that would be great.
Yeah, so hello, my name is Ilya. I'm a software engineer from Kiev, Ukraine. My main interest as a thinker are markets, artificial intelligence, and biotechnology. And my main components are environment and aging. So next.
I can go next.
Okay.
My name is Joe. I'm also a software engineer. My main interests are data, open source data. My background is I was formerly trained to be a Jesuit, so I did like all the philosophy stuff and like classical kind of studies. That's pretty much me. I think this is a cool topic. I think I have more. My other quick thing. My lens is usually very evolutionary biology or evolutionary psychology. I tend to look at things through Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I think, in general, I tend to be more capitalist in my tendencies and more freedom-based and that kind of thinking. But I'm nowhere near libertarian. I think certain communities and certain cultures and certain contexts really demand for a more collective kind of like system of governance. That's pretty much it.
Thank you. And then Dan, would
You want to go? You want to go, Jennifer?
I don't know what my
Okay.
thinker.
She's there. She's actually, so I can speak for Jennifer apparently. She's really big into Stoicism. Marcus Aurelius and all like the Stoic thinkers were really big on her. If I had to guess, she has more of a capitalist leaning. If I had to guess, also she thinks more modern society needs the ancient thinkers more than ever, especially in modern times. It helps us make sense of society more in these contexts, ironically enough. So yeah, that's Jen.
Thank you for the introduction. And who'd like to go next?
I could, if it's okay.
All right.
Hi, I'm Yanis. My background is from Greece. I'm also concerned about artificial intelligence and environment. And philosophy is also one thing that I'm interested in. And mostly the part of how philosophy applies in our everyday life and how we can use the philosophical thinking to make a better environment, like starting from small communities to larger scale, and how we can improve our lives and our environments through philosophical thinking. Yeah, nice to meet you, everyone.
Nice to meet you too.
Please just
Suzanne?
call on the next person, Ilya.
Okay. Tang, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Tang Na Ng. I'm from Singapore. My main interest as a thinker is, well, actually my background is in political sociology and sociology of education. Currently, I work in the National Institute of Education in Singapore, and I'm going to work on a project on artificial intelligence or robotics on social emotional behavior for low progress learners. So this is my current interest right now. I'm not an activist really, but I hope to be someday.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot to learn from Singapore, so I hope you'll come.
Thank you.
So, Sari, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Cezary Jurewicz. I'm from USA. I reside on the outskirts of Chicago in Bensenville, Illinois. My main interest as a thinker, that's ethics and economics. My main concerns as an activist, that's animal liberation and social and economic justice. Thank you.
Thank you. Who is JK?
Hi, can you guys hear me? I'm new to this group and meetup. I live in Texas, United States, and I am interested in social justice, social experiment projects, and I have been part of a nonprofit that runs social experiments. So I'm quite interested to know about Agora. Correct me if I'm wrong, this is more of a electronic online gathering, right? So it's like the Greek term. Is that what my understanding is?
I can take it from here, Ilya, if you want me to.
Yes.
Yes, so just to answer the question real quick, that Agora comes from electronic, it's a contraction of electronic and agora. It's an agora being a Greek term for like a public meeting space. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Yanis. But so we had someone else in the chat trying to join us, but they couldn't. Well, hopefully they give it another shot. So I'm gonna go ahead and give you a quick presentation of the platform, of the Agora networking platform. First, let me just explain it real quick. The purpose of Agora is so that we can have citizen assembly meetings, like real citizen democracy, people coming together on an unlimited scale. Because like we have a small group of people here, and so it's easy for everyone to speak, to have a turn to speak and be heard by everyone else. If instead of 7 people, if we had 700 or 7,000 or 7 million or 7 billion, that would be quite impossible. But it is possible using Agora. So that's the purpose of that, is to decentralize those types of meetings and to include everyone in that deliberative process. The way that Agora works is that each person is developing their own political philosophy out of various ideas. Think of it like a political candidate. They have a platform out of different planks on issues that they support. So the same here, we want every citizen to actually develop that for themselves. Every citizen should develop their own political platform out of different ideas. That's called an ideological profile in Agora. And then as each person does that, Agora aggregates that information to show which of those ideas the people support the most, and then to cross-reference the most strongly supported ideas to people who want to be political candidates. and represent the will of the people, and to create a list of political candidates who most closely represent the will of the people. I'll go ahead and share my screen now to show you all how that works, how that looks within the platform. So I'm gonna log out here. So this is the front page of Agora. It has a Greek theme to it because it is based on Greek philosophy and Greek. It's improved upon the concepts of Greek democracy. When you click enter, this takes you to the login and registration screen. The registration process is very simple. It asks you for your name, your nation, and your email address, and to create a password. Now, the thing about nation, it's not your country, it's your nation. So, because there are many nations around the world that don't actually have their own countries, they've been colonized or conquered by other societies. So here we want people to actually express themselves as they want to be governed and to organize that way. So, and I'll show you how this looks in a moment. So when you actually log into the platform, this shows you how many users there are, how many people there are. This is how many, ultimately we organize as the International Logic Party. So this is how many members of the International Logic Party there are in the platform. And then these are the various nations of the members of the International Logic Party. This is why you see USA, United States of America. It might look like it's disorganized, but it's not. It's just in the process of organizing, because people say how they call themselves, not how they call themselves instead of how they're called. There are many people, like I said, around the world that don't have their own country. Like, for example, this is the original name for New Zealand before it was colonized and it became New Zealand. Or like this is Belgium, but the people from Belgium, they don't call themselves Belgish or whatever. The point is that people call themselves. If people are to have real power, people have to have real freedom in how they associate and how they identify themselves. And so here we're slowly building support behind a common name, but other people can do that, can do the same thing. Maybe somebody doesn't want to be a part of the USA. Maybe they want their nation to be Pennsylvania, as it once was, and it became absorbed and taken over by the Federation. Anyways, point is, if people are to have real power, people have to have real freedom, how to organize. So these nations, they play a role in how these ideas are organized, because on the home screen here, this is my ideological profile. It consists of all kinds of different ideas on all kinds of different issues. And these ideas are organized in a couple different main aspects. First of all, some ideas are universal, whereas other people are national. The national ideas, they can only be created by members of that specific nation. They can only be created and supported by members of that nation. The other aspect of how these ideas are organized is they are structured from 23 points down to 1. So 23, 22, 21, and so on. There are also 0-point ideas. They're basically alternative ideas. I'm not going to explain that right now. Alternative ideas. It helps with the faster evolution of ideas, but that's all I'll say about that right now. But this is how many points I'm giving to these ideas. So this idea, I give this idea 23 points, but this, this idea fell in support since the last time I logged in. But this idea here, I give this idea 22 points, but this idea actually has 124 points because there are other supporters for this idea and they're also giving it points. This idea here, for example, I give it 15 points, but this idea actually has 464 points from other supporters. Now, over here in the indexes, this is where all of this information comes together. And this is a list of all of the different ideas within Agora, according to how much support they have from the people. So this is the #1 idea in the world within the system. It has 464 points. From 33 supporters. This is the #2 idea, 219 points from 17 supporters, and so on. There are all kinds of ideas here that are competing with one another for attention, essentially. Some of these ideas are great. Some of these ideas are stupid. Some of these ideas are incomplete or just lacking it. All kinds of ideas. But the point is that the best ideas, they rise to the top as we discuss them and deliberate them in our meetings. And that's the next section here. This is a place where anyone can organize a citizen assembly meeting or other meetings also. But so like, for example, this is, where's today's meeting? Oh, this is, yeah, this is today's meeting. So people can organize meetings to bring other people together, but to deliberate those ideas. But over here, ultimately, the goal of this is to actually create political candidates who are going to work to realize those ideas. So, for example, for the nation of USA, here we have two candidates. I don't really want to be a politician. I'm just putting myself out there for now. But we can create lists of political candidates according to how closely their ideas represent the will of the people. So if you want to champion the will of the people, we need you to step up. So like, for example, this is Ozone. So his score is 2016 points. And if you want to learn more about Ozone, you can check out his ideological profile, see what he's about. One other thing I wanted to show you before we wrap up this presentation is we're doing this. This was the main Agora that I just showed you, but there's also a municipal Agora, which is for organizing ideas just within your town, within your city, within your village or whatever. But the point is we can do this at any level. So this is a municipal Agora for this, like this is for Chicago, Illinois. And then there are also community Agoras for any other organization that wants to democratically organize. They can create their own community here. There are several default communities that everyone's a part of. For example, Agora development. This is actually about how different ideas for how to improve the platform. So we have an Agora for that. Truths we should all know, stories we should all hear, world's biggest challenges, citizen assembly. This is for organizing citizen assembly. Shaping culture, it's a general community for just ideas about culture. Businesses to boycott, my favorite books, my personal values, bucket list, just for fun. And then the other communities, these are the ones that I've joined. And so like you can take a look at all the different communities here. It shows you how many people are in those communities. But okay, so that's it for the presentation. Of course, if you have other questions, we'll try to address them after the meeting, and some of them, well, and some during the meeting. But I'd like for us to move on to the actual presentation and deliberation of ideas. First of all, I'd like to ask if there is anyone else, because I do have an idea that I would like to present today. I would like to ask if anyone else has an idea that they would like to present for discussion and deliberation. And so, sorry, was it John or, sorry, Joe, you are muted. Oh, hold on a second, you have to unmute yourself.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah, so I'm Joe. I have a quick idea. I can talk about it. If like no one else has any filler, I would love to talk about it. So.
Okay. The only, just to clarify again, the only requirements for presenting an idea is that it's written as a plain text document, that it's published somewhere for others to see, and that it's copyleft for others to use. You can use published and interpret that however you want, but it's so that it's accessible to others and so that it's written. That's one of the essential things, is that it's actually written down. It doesn't have to be fancy. It could be one, it could even be one word, but it could be one sentence. That's up to you. But that's the essential thing, is that because here we actually advance specific ideas. We're trying to build support behind those ideas. So we have to know what the specific idea is. It demonstrates commitments and specificity. So if you can meet those conditions, that's fine. Also, the other thing, just to clarify, we could also discuss that. I don't know how long this discussion is going to be. We might be able to discuss multiple ideas in sequence. We could also have breakout rooms. It's a pretty small group, but still, we could still have breakout rooms, even in a group this size. So that's always a possibility.
So real quick, can I see some examples to make sure mine qualifies?
I will show you, and we also have a hand up from Giannis. So let me just show you all real quick what idea I would like to present. And this is because we kind of started this discussion already. We have a lot of new people relatively compared to the our veterans. So the idea I'd actually like to bring up for discussion is the number one idea on the Idea Dominance Index. It's about the universal basic income. I'll go ahead and read this real quick. In our sophisticated society with a complex economy, we recognize that while we must incentivize people to be productive members of our society, the value of the contributions of some members to society cannot easily be gauged by their activity in the market. For example, parents, artists, philosophers, community servants, etc. Furthermore, we recognize that markets can fail to reward people despite their best efforts to be productive. For this reason, we should institute a universal basic income. The amount of this UBI should be dependent on the size of the economy so as to never disincentivize higher productivity of our society. So that's the idea I have to present for today.
You have to get the capitalists to agree to this because they are the ones who are going to fund it.
I'm a capitalist. I find this idea to be completely agreeable with capitalism.
So
okay.
So Cesar,
Okay.
could you kind of expound on that last sentence in terms of the productivity being higher and incentivization and de-incentivization? Could you elaborate on that just a bit?
I will definitely do that during the discussion. But for right now, I just want to see who else has an idea that they would like to present for discussion today. And so if you have something that you want to write down, Joe, and one thing I want to show you still kind of in the context of presenting Agora, in the community Agora, there are all kinds of different communities. And for example, there's this community. It's intended to be kind of fun, but also kind of like self-help type of thing. My personal values. And I actually spent last night, yesterday evening. Yeah, no, it was quite late, but I was actually organizing. I started a lot of these, but I didn't prioritize them, and I wanted to prioritize them. Like an idea for discussion could essentially be just one word. Like an idea could be one word. So this is an example. You know, it's like a value that that I have. Of course, I don't expect everyone to share that value, but it's an idea. It is an idea in Agora. It is published. It is in plain text, and it is copyleft. So we could discuss that as an idea in itself. So if you have something that you didn't want to write down and make available for us to discuss, then please do. But let's hear from Giannis real quick. Giannis, you have your hand up.
Yeah, hi, thank you. I really like the idea you mentioned and the whole concept behind your platform. There is actually a movie maybe more than 12 years ago, Eighth Wonderland. I don't know if anyone is familiar with that movie. So apparently there is a group of people that start this online platform similar to what you're mentioning. It's based on democracy. Everyone has a vote on what's going on. They're trying to improve the community. And I think it's very interesting if you have a look at it because it's very close, has a lot of similarities with your idea.
Let's talk about it later. But you don't have an idea to present today, right?
No, I'm more to listen and less to contribute. I'm not prepared for, yeah, thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to give everyone an opportunity, anyone who wanted to present today. So Giannis, not Giannis, Joe, do you think you will have an idea then?
Yeah, I think I have something presentable that follows the format. I haven't marked my idea copy left, but it's open source and anyone can look at the source code and it promotes open source data. And it's very, like, the guy who invented copyleft is Richard Stallman, and I think he would approve of the idea and how I've presented it. So I don't know, it's in the spirit of copyleft. I think that's my only concern.
Well, if you want to publish it in the chat, we could do that. What we could do is reserve. So we're about almost on the 40-minute mark. That gives us an hour to discuss ideas, and then it gives us 20 minutes for closing remarks. We have a smaller group. We might not need that much time for closing remarks. We could discuss the UBI idea for maybe, I don't know. Well, as long as we need to. If you want to call for a breakout room, Joe, you can actually do that at any time. If you wanted to call for a breakout room now, that would divide us smaller, but we could do that. Or we,
I think I like, let's do the UBI thing, and if it's interesting and we're good and it, like it's a good conversation, I'm down, and maybe I'll postpone mine for next time. So it's fine. Either way.
No, we always need ideas. So if especially for next time, if you want to then prepare it a bit more, that's also an option. That will be great. But okay, so let's start with the UBI idea. Now, the process is that we first want to have a full reading of the idea so everyone actually knows what the text contains, because there might be many different clauses that, well, a lot of people just like kind of skim an idea and they think they know what it's about, but then they find, oh, wait a minute, there are all these things that I didn't know that were there that completely changed the meaning of it. And so we did actually, I did already read the idea in full. I could read it one more time since it's so short, but after we do the quick reading, then we want to have a quick show of hands to see who agrees with it. And agreement means like who is generally in favor of that idea. Then we want to see who is actually a supporter of it. And by supporter, we mean specifically this version of this idea is in their ideological profile in Igora. That's what that means. An agreement means you generally agree, wherever, in whatever frame of reference you want. Support means that it's a part of your philosophy in Igora. And then we will move on to the deliberation. And we just had Jose join us. Welcome, Jose. I just want to, so it's going to be great. We're going to read this idea again real quick. This way Jose can hear it. Jose, can we get an audio check from you real quick? Can you hear us?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
Awesome. So we're going to read this idea. Take a moment here. And again, this idea is actually in the main Igora. It's in, I give this idea 15 points. It's currently the #1 idea. So universal basic income. In our sophisticated society with a complex economy, we recognize that while we must incentivize people to be productive members of our society, the value of the contributions of some members to society cannot easily be gauged by their activity in the market. For example, parents, artists, philosophers, community servants, etc. Furthermore, we recognize that markets can fail to reward people despite their best efforts to be productive. For this reason, we should institute a universal basic income. The amount of this UBI should be dependent on the size of the economy so as to never disincentivize higher productivity of our society. That's the idea. So there's a lot to be said about that, but let's find out who agrees with this idea. You could also give this kind of gesture if you're kind of partially in favor of it. Otherwise, just raise your hand. So we have myself, we have Tang, we have anyone else who agrees with this idea, just to let us know who we are going to be working with. Giannis, we have a hand up from Giannis. All right, so that's our agreement. So who supports this idea in Igora, or who intends to support this idea in Igora when they get a chance? A quick show of hands. That's myself, Tang, and Giannis. Is that still a hand up from you? Okay. And so we have actually Joe and Jennifer joining us to support this idea. Fantastic. All right, let's move on to the deliberation. To keep track of whose turn it is to speak, please write hand up in all capitals in the chat. That makes it very easy to keep track of. I usually have a lot to say about this idea, so I'm gonna wait until other people speak first, and I've been talking for a while. So whoever would like to speak first, if you would use the chat, that would be great. If not, we'll try to keep track of your raising hands. But it looks like Tang really wants to speak. So Tang, the floor is yours.
I just want to make one point. For the past 10 years, governments in the world, including the United States and Singapore, have been relying on stimulus checks to help the masses. So instead of relying on stimulus checks, the universal basic income eliminates the need for stimulus checks.
Okay, we have a hand up from Giannis.
So it's a really complicated matter, I think, and it's not easy to solve in one statement or another. But I think one comment that I would like to make is that the limitations of the current system are obvious in many reasons and in many aspects of everyday living, from the, like, you see the handling of a pandemic or a crisis, and before the pandemic, other crises that come. So one system like the one you're presenting would solve many problems that the current system seems to have limitation and is not able to address. Yeah, that's a first comment. And there is something that I think it was an Indian political scientist that mentioned about, I don't know if anyone heard the progressive utilization theory, that he actually mentions that capitalism can reach a point like today that you have some people with crazy wealth, like $500 billion and this and that, and other people that are starving, are in poverty. So he presents a system that you actually put a limit to the wealth that one person can accumulate. So let's say, like, for example, in your life, you can accumulate up to 10, 20 millions. After that, anything after that is an excess that is not needed. Like all this extra luxury after that point is not needed. So he presents a system that after one limit, you can retire, you can enjoy the wealth that you made, and there is no need for you to get any richer. And that would create a balance. So I was wondering, like, as a question for you, will there be limitations on this income, and how could you apply a system like this that will promote equality, but on the other hand, it won't make you it won't stop you from creating a business or being creative or contributing, like, in one way or another? I don't know. That's some first comments and thoughts that I have. Thank you.
Okay,
So can I respond to that question?
I did have my hand up next, but
Okay, yeah, so no, go ahead.
I'm fine with you going. If you
I'm
like,
I'm not used to like the iPad situation we have right now, so, and the Zoom thing, but I'm working on it. But yeah, go ahead, Cesar.
okay. No, if you want to go next, I'm happy with you going next.
So I heard the well, I think it was what was a priority utilization theory, right? And basically, in essence, it's that there's a cap on the amount of money you can make. Is that what I heard, if I'm not mistaken? So if there is a cap on the amount of money you can make, even let's say if it's something like absurd, like either your cap, instead of, let's say Jeff Bezos has 500 billion, the new cap is 400 billion. Would that create a disincentivization of people to open businesses and to innovate? Would a cap at all be like a signal to you that, or to somebody or to the population, that maybe we shouldn't open businesses? Maybe like we shouldn't try to go for it all, or do some grand big idea that no one's thought of before, or be bolder in our business plans or in our innovation or in our goals. I think, and I'm not saying that this is true, but I'm saying it is plausible that there could be people that see that cap as a signal to tell them, hey, don't reach as high as you want, kind of thing. And maybe that's that might be like my American spirit coming through, that like, we can do anything in America, we're number one, kind of thing. But it's definitely that ethos that I see being negated by that whole concept. And that's just what I want to put out there.
Okay, I do have my hand up next. Like I said, I have a lot to say about this idea. Actually, economics is to me, it's about the most interesting thing. I always like to joke that real philosophers study economics, not philosophy. But what, because really, like half the ideas in my ideological profile I support are pertaining to economics, because economics is so much about justice. Really, that's, and philosophy. Half of philosophy is about justice, at least, at the very least. And economics is pretty much about understanding how the world works, so you can do it more justly. So, what all your comments so far have brought up, it's like starting with Tang, she brought up whether this idea is compatible with capitalism. Then there's this whole idea of stimulus checks and these other mechanisms, and then this concept of wealth limits. I want to share my screen for a moment and show you what my ideological profile looks like, because what's really fascinating to me about Agora, this is why I love using this tool so much, is because the point is that these ideas are interconnected with other ideas. Like these ideas don't stand alone from other ideas. And so if you look at my ideological profile, the first thing that it starts out with, it's like a fundamental philosophy. It's like nature of reality, human capacity for understanding reality, mechanics of reality, ethics, rights, trust, and politics. This idea is for animal liberation, which is actually my most important practical issue. Then this next idea is actually, it starts to get into economics. This is really the beginning of economics, because it talks about planet Earth and land ownership and freedom of migration, because the essential concept in economics is, and freedom is that if you want to do your economy differently, you can go somewhere else and go to another country or elsewhere and just do, if you want a different tax rate and people here want a certain tax rate, then, well, just go somewhere else and do your own business your own way. Well, at a certain point, we actually run out of land, and we don't have enough land for everyone to do things their own way. So this is really like the fundamentals of economics, is like land ownership. But anyway, so that's like my first economic idea. But then we move on to this idea, and this is actually what I wanted to share with you all. It has 3 sections: fairness in economics, government and fairness in government and economics is the role of government. So this is to answer Tang's point about whether the UBI is compatible with capitalism. I think it's very much compatible with capitalism. This section 1 says the market system is the only method for society to relate the value of goods that make life possible, such as food, to goods that make life enjoyable, such as art, in a way that is fair to the preferences of everyone. Thus, the market system should be the basis of any economy. So this idea is to state that the market system is great. Like that's the default of how we build our economy. But then we move on to section 2. The government should not play any role in influencing the behavior of market participants by favoring anyone through subsidies, price controls, barriers to entry, or taxes, except those that are necessary for strategic interests of national defense, establishing minimum standards of consumer safety, and accounting for externalities. So this idea of wealth limits, I think that's a terrible idea in general, because it's an invasion of privacy. I talk about this idea in the following idea. It's about my theory of taxation. But yeah, I think we should have a flat tax on everything. I don't want to get into that right now, but the point is that I think we should maximize freedom. But then there's more to it, and this is the third part. There are various methods through which the government can augment market activity for the benefit of the society as a whole, and things that the government can do better centrally than citizens can do through free enterprise. However, due to the contentious and circumstantial nature of such mechanisms, they will be left unspecified here. And so ideas like the universal basic income, I think they fit into this section 3 right there. Because well, it's that the purpose of that idea is to say, well, markets are great because they maximize freedom and efficiency. Government should not interfere in as much of that our economy, the least possible. But at the same time, there are some things that we do need the government to do, and this concept of wealth distribution, especially in the economy that we have, it does tend to skew in favor of those who already have a lot of wealth, well, the government should play a role in redistributing that wealth. That's where the UBI idea kind of fits into this other idea. So I just wanted to show you all, to me, that this is completely compatible with capitalism, but I don't think we should have these invasive government measures. And I'm gonna stop right there and yield the floor to whoever is next. Do we have a hand up from anyone? We have Tang with her hand up, please.
Maybe people like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, if they support the ideas of universal basic income, then more capitalists will be willing to support it as well.
I'm sorry, can you say the first thing that you said?
If
Again?
capitalists like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett support the universal basic income, then more capitalists will be more willing to support the idea.
Okay, do we have a hand up from anyone else besides myself? Oh, go ahead, Giannis, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't believe that this idea of universal basic income is against capitalism. On the contrary, it will refeed the consumption and production lines in a better way. Because at this moment, I believe one of the problems is that we have a lot of products that people are not able to consume because of the lack of income. So maybe something like this will give the stimulus to the markets that is needed for people to keep consuming, and entrepreneurs or business keep producing, because you avoid this stocking in warehouse of products that are not being sold for any reason. So yeah, I believe that it has nothing to do against the capitalism or the current system. Yeah, that's a comment. Thank you.
I do have my hand up next, and then Joe is next. So first, I want to respond to Tang. Yes, if we can get other people to support this idea, that would be good. It's whether they're wealthy or not. I tend to focus on people as people rather than how much money they have. I mean, sure, in the current society, it's great if you have wealthy backers, but I'm looking for every person's in assembly today support before I'm going to concern myself with people like Warren Buffett or any of the other. Maybe if all of us can support this idea and get others to support this idea, then eventually the word will spread to the others, and they will get on board too. So the point is, let's not fascinate too much about wealthy people, because they're not going to do all that much for us.
1.9% of the population controls about 42% of the wealth.
And the other thing that I wanted to point out is that regarding what Giannis was saying, actually, if you look in Agora, if you look on the indexes and you search for universal, if you just search for like universal basic income, I wanted to show you that there are other ideas that pertain to this topic. There are actually at least 16 ideas that have something with universal, something about this. And there is another idea. I wanted to show you all that it addresses the point about effective demand. And that's this idea right here. Because the global capitalist economy is facing a lack of effective demand crisis, more goods can be produced than there is effective demand for those goods. The global economy is facing a deflationary cycle, slowing economic growth and slowing profitability. In order to rectify this situation, a universal basic income will be necessary, either on a national or international scale. I don't want to keep reading this idea. I find problems with this idea. I don't even want to give it that much more attention. But so there are other takes on this. There are other points. The reason that I support the version of this idea that I do, because to me it's more philosophical than that. I mean, yeah, all of that stuff is true. There are all kinds of economic arguments in favor of this, but I think the philosophy of the UBI is even deeper and more fundamental than that. Because a UBI actually has its place not just in the modern society, but we very much could have had a UBI several thousand years ago. Like, this is not just a modern day phenomenon that we need the UBI. UBI would have played a good role even back, 1,000 years or 2,000 years ago. It would have been much more difficult to implement. The economy was different back then, but if you look at it philosophically, it had a role back then too. Although it probably wouldn't have been as significant. But anyways, I'm going to yield the floor for right now. I think we have a hand up from Joe.
So one thing that I've heard, and this is a question in the group, I don't know if this idea has validity, but like a criticism I've heard for the UBI is that it turns into this like game of economic relativism, in the sense that whatever the UBI is, it'll give some standard of living to some person that'll free them up to do something more productive or something to that effect. However, over time, that person will have the same low standard of living that they did before, because everything will just become relative to that low baseline, to that UBI baseline. So let's say the lowest earners right now get the UBI, and they have this like period of like quote unquote stimulus or an income that provides for them where they don't have to worry about their basic necessities. Over time, that with inflation and whatnot, it'll just like degrade back down to what it was before, and they will be struggling again. And it's just like the numbers are just going to shift. And I don't know if that idea has any validity, but I've definitely heard that in like certain economic circles. So.
Well, in Finland, they implemented the universal basic income.
Excuse me, Tang, I have my hand up next. I don't know if you had your hand up, but I had my hand up next.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that.
And also, Yanis, did you have your hand up? I don't know if I saw your hand moving. And again,
no, thank you. I was just picking up something.
Okay. This is why I highly recommend that we all use the chat to keep track of whose hand is up. So I wanted to, well, one thought that came to mind, I wanted to address the point that the whole thing about, again, the stimulus checks and because this is kind of related to the whole welfare thing. I guess one of the concerns is that people will get, the reason why people might argue for the stimulus check is because they're less reliable, as opposed to the UBI is more reliable. Then again, if the UBI fluctuates based on the size of the economy, the amount of it is not necessarily reliable. So people do not have that certainty that if everybody quits their job, that they're always going to get free money. You know, technically it's not really free money, depending on how you articulate it. But the point is if so, I think some people are concerned with that. Yeah, that instead of the UBI, instead of it coming sporadically here and there, that if it's reliable, then people will just get lazy. But I don't think that's true at all. And actually, because it's both true and it's not true, because some people will always keep working. Frankly, there are already many people who are not working within the current system. They're getting away with, and in a sense, the system of welfare actually keeps people in that cycle of poverty. If you have the option of getting $1,000 a month for working some kind of a minimum wage job, or not even below, minimum wage, or really low paying job, or just getting money for welfare, you would be an idiot to actually work, the shitty job and not just take the welfare, and maybe get some kind of an, black market job, just not pay any taxes on it. So that actually keeps people disincentivized from working the current welfare system. But the point that Joe was addressing was about inflation and the standard shifting, and I would say that is actually unfounded and that it's really nonsensical. And I think this is the hard part for people to understand about the UBI is that it really is such a great idea, that it really does solve so many of our problems in society. It does stabilize the economy. It does help the poor. It does still incentivize people. Like, that's actually, it's hard to understand how good of an idea this is, because there aren't really that many ideas that are that good. So we haven't often seen them in practice. But the point is, if anything, the UBI would actually create deflation. It would actually raise wages, because people would be more incentivized to actually get to work. The employers would have to compete much more fiercely in order to bring people into the labor pool. So they would have to offer higher wages. And so now people are making a lot more money in their jobs. So they're like, well, you know what? The wages are high. I actually want to do some more work. So I want to get paid, and I want to buy nicer things for my family. And so it would like, there are so many ramifications, and they're all positive. Now, the one other thing that I wanted to say is, with people getting lazy, and some people would actually get lazy. Some people would be like, you know what? I'm getting the UBI. I never have to work again. Some people would actually really do that, but that's okay. Those people were just slowing us down in the first place. We should just pay them to stay home and get the hell out of the way while the rest of us, do society. And frankly, those people, if they were really home sitting on their ass watching TV, they would actually get bored. They would want something to do. Maybe they would play video games, and maybe they would create a YouTube channel where other people just watch them play video games because they're so awesome at playing those games. And people would actually give them money for the entertainment that they provide. And all of a sudden, this unproductive bum is now actually doing something that people value. And I mean, you could say the same thing about musicians. Somebody could be strumming their guitar and sucking, but then if they play it long enough, they're like, oh, wait a minute, they're actually bringing a lot of happiness and joy into people's lives. So that's the point. It's really hard to evaluate what is really valuable. What's garbage to one person can be a treasure to someone else. So this gives more people more freedom, but it really empowers people to develop themselves and provide value in the way that they actually do it best. So that's the thing. And we're not really perfect at judging any of these things, because one moment somebody could be wasting their time and just wasting taxpayer money, but all of a sudden they get an idea, they do something, they get good at it, and everybody loves it. Or maybe they're just a parent, maybe they're just really good at being a parent and a community servant. Maybe they organize their local community and get involved that way. But anyways, I've been talking for a while. I'm gonna yield the floor. And who do we have next? I think Tang is next. So please, you have the floor.
I agree with you. I agree with most of what you said. I just want to add one point. The Scandinavian countries with the strongest social security expenditures, and Finland, which has experimented with the universal basic income, they have the happiest people in the world. In a survey studying happiest people in the world, they are from Scandinavia. And happy people are productive.
I don't see any hands up at the moment, but I want to welcome Abdul. Abdul is joining us from Ghana. And we are discussing the idea for the universal basic income. And we have a hand up from Jennifer. So please, you have the floor.
So this is Joe. We're sharing a camera, but the one other quick thing, and I totally think the Scandinavian model is something we should look at and to address Tang's point, but I don't know if it applies to all countries and all cultures and all contexts. I'd just like to throw in that caveat. But I'm in total agreement that people are more likely to produce the most value when they're freed up to, when they have the freedom to produce that value. As a general heuristic or rule of thumb, I often use Maslow's hierarchy. And if you notice at the bottom of that pyramid, it's really, if you have these basic necessities covered and you feel that you have a sense of safety in those basic necessities, that really helps you move up that ladder. And moving up that ladder can open up opportunities for like new businesses, new jobs, new ideas, new art, new music, just a whole slew of things. It opens up the human potential. So in that sense, I think universal basic income, if you look at it from the Maslow's hierarchy perspective, it tends to line up pretty well and kind of makes me believe in that idea even more. That's it.
Thank you. Do we have a hand up from anyone else? Any other hands up? I'll go ahead and speak until someone else wants to speak. One thing I want to say, we're not here to discuss this idea to discuss ideas to infinity. We are here to actually realize the best ideas. So the focus is, I'm here to advance this idea. I'm looking to get your support for this idea in Agora. I'm looking to get people who would be willing to run for office to enact this idea. Really, that's what we need. So we do have to organize. If we do have agreement from everyone, potentially we could actually wrap up this discussion, and if everyone is on board, that would be fantastic. And try to solve the next world's problem. Or local, even discuss some ideas. There's some really interesting, more local ideas. There's an idea I support about making municipal public transit completely free to the commuters and funded by taxpayer dollars. That's another idea that kind of relates to the UBI idea, that we actually get more value by making some things, just giving people access to certain basic things. Does anyone else have anything to say about this idea? Any other points they would like to make? And we have a hand up from Abdul. Please, you have the floor.
Hi to everyone. I think the universal basic income is a beautiful idea, and I'm sure for those who don't know me or for those who just joined us earlier, I think we've discussed this some time ago. It's a really, really beautiful idea that will have a lot of beautiful outcomes if governments are able to implement that. It will reduce crime, it will reduce poverty, it will reduce inequality, and it will as well promote unity and nationalism. So it's really a great idea that comes with so many solutions to so many of our problems as we see today. So I think it will be very wise for us to try to introduce this idea to people that we know that are in government in our various countries, even if it is the assembled member, the least person even in the local government, that is good that we introduce this idea to them and let them see how beautiful it is and how it can improve on our general or our universal living standards. And once we introduce it to such people and they really understand how beautiful it is and how impacting it will be, they will be motivated to take it upwards and then to also introduce it to their supervisor, and it goes on till it gets into the right hands at the top of the government, which is the president, and then or the prime minister, and these ideas are likely or would be implemented so that we can all benefit from the outcomes of it. I yield the floor.
Thank you, Abdul. And actually, I have my hand up next. And thank you for reminding me a couple other points I do always like to make, because yeah, you mentioned crime. I think this would in many ways this would cut the prison system and the criminal justice system by half probably, because I mean, think about it. If you have a person, there are a lot of people going to jail for committing petty crimes and really living, I mean, not to mention people living in like abusive households and, or, just really scraping by the, but some of that, a lot of that leads people to crime, or actually a lot of crimes of passion are committed because people are confined, constricted in their means. They're not able to get out of an abusive relationship. And so, well, their relationship turns on itself. But I'm thinking right now more of just petty crime, just for economic reasons. Just if you are, if you have the choice of, do I steal this, I don't know, this radio, this stereo or computer, and just to make a few dollars and risk going to jail for it, or if I have the UBI, should I just, continue getting the UBI and stay out of jail? Like, if you consider these options, it makes it much less likely that people would be interested in committing crimes just for like really small amounts of money, when they could keep both their freedoms and still have an income to survive on. So, I mean, we would actually like eliminate so much crime because of this. The other thing is that with the UBI, people don't think about this all that often. They don't talk about it, but it's a very interesting and I think a very effective immigration policy, because if we do have a lot of refugees and people trying to flee certain places. We could essentially use the UBI as an immigration policy we could open up our borders. Well, not completely. There still needs to be some control and some restriction, but we could actually open up the borders for people coming from other places. And sure, they're not coming illegally, technically. They might be refugees or for whatever reason. But if they're not going through the proper process, then they're not going to get the UBI. If they're not legal residents, then they're not going to get the UBI. So they will have the benefit of escaping a war-torn country, or a country that's in crisis. They can take the low-paying jobs, but the low-paying jobs will actually have a higher pay, because most of the legal residents won't be interested in doing those jobs anyways, because they have the UBI and they can compete for more higher paid jobs. So actually everybody wins, both the local residents as well as any refugees and immigrants also benefit from that. So there are consequences this way. The other point I just want to, I guess I don't think I clarified it before. I think UBI is more likely to cause deflation. It's more likely to raise the value of money rather than to decrease it. And the reason for that, this is my understanding of it. If there's something incorrect with it, I'd like to hear it. But really, that the price of money is really a factor of two things. One is how big the economy is versus how big the supply of money is. And everybody knows this, if you print money, if you increase the supply of money, then you're going to devalue that currency. It's just, there's just more money, and if the economy stays the same, the economy is flooded with money becomes cheaper, so it becomes less valuable. Well, if you decrease the supply of money, then you deflate the value of that currency. The money becomes more valuable because there is, more business needs that currency, so the money itself is more valuable. But if you do the opposite, if instead of adjusting the supply of money, if instead you change the size of the economy, if you actually grow the economy, so in a sense, it's, instead of shrinking the supply of money, instead you grow the size of the economy, it will also have a deflationary effect. People say that it will cause inflation. No, it won't. That's not how it works. If you were to shrink the size of the economy and keep the supply of money the same, then yes, you would have inflation. But when you're growing the economy, and this specific idea is predicated on the UBI only increasing, the amount of the UBI only increases with the size of the economy. So if the economy is growing, then the UBI rises. If the size of the economy decreases, then the UBI falls. So if it's based on that, then it would, if not keeping the amount of or the value of money stable, it would actually cause deflation. So no, it wouldn't devalue people's money. That's just another point I wanted to make. But eventually it would stabilize. Eventually it would simply stabilize. So it really has to do with the size of the economy. Eventually the size of the economy would stabilize. If the money supply is constant, or stable, then the value is stable also, and there is no inflation or deflation, or it's negligible. But those are the points I wanted to make. I yield the floor. We have a hand up from Joe or Jennifer.
So real quick, when you say the size of the economy, are you talking about GDP, or is there like another metric? I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty details. I just kind of want to check my economics textbooks and make sure I'm kind of like it all jives with me. But everything you said sounds great. I'm just curious if that's the commonly used metric is GDP.
My short answer to that would be GDP per person.
Okay.
Yeah, because it would still have to be adjusted for, the size of the population. Obviously, if the size of the population increases and activity remains constant per person, everybody is still just as, as busy as they were before, then the economy increases with population. But here we're talking about economic activity. Well, you get it. It's per person. If the economy is increasing overall per the population staying constant.
I yield the floor. Thank you.
Likewise, Tang, you're next.
Okay. A brilliant economist told me, in the long run, the economy will be in equilibrium.
Yeah. I agree with that, but the economy is always changing, so it's there's always new innovation, new things. So
if the currency is weak, exports will be cheaper. You don't get so much profit from abroad.
Sorry, can you say that again? If you don't get as
If
much
the
profit?
currency, if you increase the money supply, the value of money will decrease. So a weak currency will reduce the prices of your exports. So you do not earn as much money through exporting. So it has to be import. You have to rely on domestic economy, not through foreign exchange or trading to other countries. Because a weak currency means your exports will be cheap.
I can't say I followed all of that. I do apologize.
I think I followed it. So real quick, I'm sorry if I'm interjecting, but I think Tang is saying in essence, if you have a weak currency, you have to become more isolationist, meaning you have to rely on your internal economy and you can't have as much global trade. So in essence, I think what Tang is ultimately saying is, if we do implement this UPI, we'll have more. We'll have the ability to have more global trade, and there'll be a more interconnected economy as a result of having a higher value currency. Am I wrong, Tang?
You are correct.
I just want to say I would have to think about that.
You have to build your own infrastructure. Like President Joe Biden's agenda is to build the American infrastructure, American jobs funded by American money. So you have to invest internally.
Okay, real quick, I want to welcome a few people who have joined us, Kay and Kat and Lois. Where did Lois go on my screen? Yeah, okay. Now I see everyone. So they just came over to our meeting from Citizen Assembly Women that Lois leads in another breakout room or in another Zoom room. We are discussing the idea, it's currently the #1 idea on the idea dominance index in Agora, the idea for the universal basic income. And especially since we have a few more people, please let's try to use the chat. If somebody would like to speak, right hand up in the chat. The one thing I just wanted to say real quick, when you get into the international trade, this was in our book club. because we do a regular book club. One of the books, I was reading my macroeconomics textbook because I wanted to reread it. And I think it was going quite well until we got to the chapters on international trade. Things get more complicated, and you can't really do that in a book club anymore. The way that we were doing it, it was really difficult. And so it's something that I had to take some time to think about and process. If you would like to make your point again, Tang, I would like to listen to it and pay attention. But from my experience, is when you're talking about international trade, this is pretty complicated stuff. It does take some time to process it. I yield the floor.
International trade has to do with your federal deficit too. Do you want to increase or decrease the federal deficit?
I'm not going to answer that. I was letting you speak and make your point.
Okay, well, the federal deficit, the US federal deficit has been brought about through trade with China, because for the past 20 years, the US has been importing Chinese goods, right, made in China, because they're inexpensive. That's why there's a large federal deficit. So in terms of international trade, you need a strong currency to buy from other countries. But if you have a weak currency, you cannot buy from other countries as much. So maybe you get to reduce the federal deficit as well. That means you have to invest in America, you have to build American infrastructure, and you have to buy American goods.
Do we have a hand up from anyone else? Okay, I'm putting my hand up. One thing, the one thing I recall from the chapter that we read is that Americans just don't save enough. Like, Americans need to save, and that's a big problem. One of the other stuff is really from a consumer's perspective. I am not so much concerned about the dollar becoming stronger by 5 or 10%, like, because usually those are the types of fluctuations that we're talking about. We're not talking about the dollar becoming twice as strong or 3 times or 50%. It's generally those fluctuations are, you know, a few percentage points, and that does make a difference for various industries. You know, they can make a lot of money, but from the consumer's perspective, if, you know, if like a jar of, I don't know, what do I buy? Soup. I buy soup that comes from Poland. They have really good soup in a jar. And if it increases in price by 5%, I really don't care. Like, that makes no impact on my behavior. So
is it sustainable?
Yes, and it is sustainable. It's, but so for the most part, I think what's more important is people's mindsets of actually saving, because if people are spending too much money on frivolous purchases, that will impact. I think the federal or the deficit, the government deficit. Anyways, but it's a lot more complicated. I actually don't want to. So I mean, if other people want to discuss it, I just want to make that comment. It's a fascinating several chapters in that book, and I really do intend to get back to it and read it when I can focus on it more fully. In the book club, that was not the best opportunity. But so in general, people should not blow their money. People should actually save, because that actually grows our economy. And I think that the government should not operate in deficits. I think if politicians should be fired if they go over budget, then they should just be completely replaced by new politicians. And I support an idea about that in Agora. It's about I forgot what the idea is, but it's like I think it's about monetary policy. No, it's about government. It might be monetary policy and like budget deficit, I think we should fire all they should automatically become unelectable if the government goes into deficit. They should be raising taxes instead of taxing us behind our backs. But I yield the floor. I'll try to, I'll try to bring up that idea. I'll put that idea in the chat, and I yield the floor to the next person. Does somebody have their hand up to speak next? Oh, Yanis?
No, actually, I have to log out. So I was saying, thank you everyone for the great input. Thank you for sharing. That's a great idea. I'll definitely look more into your site. Yeah, it's a great food for thought. Honestly, for most of the matters, I haven't made my mind. It's things that I have to think. I had great input, and thank you everyone for your perspectives. Yeah, and hope to see you soon again in another meetup or interact maybe in the platform you have.
Yanis,
Thank you
very much. Thank you very much for joining us. You are the most Greek person we have, so that's a real pleasure considering this has Greek origins. And I just wanted to share that idea that I mentioned about government borrowing, budget deficit. I just put that in the chat. We're gonna, if we don't have anyone else who wants to speak, it's fine. We can bring this meeting to closing remarks and just go into a chit chat. So
wait, I have something to say. Hand up.
So yeah, Yanis, when do you have to get going? Are you gonna?
Actually, now.
Okay. All right. Great.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Hope to see you next time.
All right. Kathleen, the floor is yours.
Okay. Well, I think it's dangerous if we owe too much money. I mean, who do we owe this money to? China. You know, and I think it's dangerous for another country to have so much control of our debt. You know, in that respect. I mean, what if they call in the debt? Then that's probably going to destroy our economy. So that's an issue.
Lois, hand up. You have your hand up?
Yes, I agree with Kat. I think it's a bad idea to operate in a deficit, not just for a country, but for anything. Really, unless there's a situation that calls for it, unless there's a good reason for it. And because there are sometimes good reasons for going into a deficit, I don't think it's a good idea to just fire someone who is in office when the nation goes into a deficit. I think that's not giving enough grace or enough flexibility for different situations or different crises that might come up. But as far as the general idea of basic income, I am in favor of it right now. I think I wasn't at first because I thought people wouldn't want to work if they had money coming in every month, no matter what. But after looking at studies and evidence indicating the contrary, I was persuaded of the merit of this idea. So thank you for sharing. I yield the floor.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else who would like to speak on this before we bring this to closing remarks? And just to clarify, for those actually, let's see who's new. We have Jose and Tang. Just to let you know, closing remarks is everyone takes a turn to speak to make their closing remarks, and you know those are uninterrupted. Not that we generally interrupt each other, anyways, but yeah, we definitely make sure that those are uninterrupted. So there's one final chance to speak. That's what that is, and for everyone. But Tang, you have your hand up, please.
Is it me or Jose?
You, Tang.
Okay. Even though buying inexpensive goods from China in the last 20 years resulted in the US federal deficit. China also bought a lot of US Treasury bonds. However, they have decreased their number of US Treasury bonds in the last 10 years. So, I don't know. Do you want China to continue buying the US Treasury bonds, or you want China to stop buying US Treasury bonds?
I don't think one country should have all the bonds to maybe, or all the debt, you know, to another country. It should be spread out, maybe.
Spread out into many countries?
Yeah, probably. Or because I think, you know, what if the debt is called in? That gives China the power to destroy the American economy. So I think that's the danger there. I think I read an article in the past about it, about how much China owns, and it's not just like the debt. It's like land ownership too, within New York or something, you know. So I mean, there's a lot of intricacies to it.
Okay, fair enough.
Wait.
I yield the floor.
Okay. I do have my hand up next. I forgot what I was going to say. I mean, to me, this is really, really interesting, but it does require some focused study. I think it's beautiful. I mean, I love economics. It's actually a very logical system. It's just a gigantic logical system. But, you know, regarding of who owns the debt, I mean, I think that's, well, whoever is willing to buy it is whoever owns it. So you don't really control that. That's the whole point of it being sold on a market. The best way to defend, you know, yourself. Well, first of all, what does really calling in the debt means? I think what that really means is that the treasury bonds that China bought, that they might not extend. They might, when the term is up, that they don't repurchase them. I think that's what that actually means. It's not like they can, any day they can say like, oh, hey, we want our money back. That's not how it works. Like, so there is advanced kind of awareness about what's going to happen. It's when certain bond terms expire, they might not repurchase them. So I guess that's the concern. It's not like they're going to call up and be like, oh, hey, we want $1 trillion. We want it back. So it's not like that kind of situation. But really, the concern is that Americans can't just budget, can't be accountable to themselves. Like, you know, Americans are going into personal debts, and the government is doing the same thing. And really, the government is reflecting what the people are doing. It's become so normalized for people to be in debt that they think it's normal for the government to be in debt too, but that's absurd. We have 4 minutes till closing remarks, and we can end it early. We can bring it to closing remarks early too, if there are no other speakers. I yield the floor. Anybody? Would anybody like to speak before closing remarks? Lois.
Just a quick comment on what you said about debt and deficit being normalized. The meeting that I just came from was Citizen Assembly Women, and the topic was ageism. And we were talking about the fear of aging and discrimination and prejudice against people of different ages. And it struck me how there is just this public opinion that people who are older are not as creative. And that's just seen as a normal thing to think. But it doesn't really have any basis at all. And it's just amazing to see what is normalized in our world. in all kinds of things, not just the culture that worships youth, but this debt, like normalizing debt. Many countries operate in debt. Most Americans operate in debt. I don't know about other countries, but it's true for the United States. It's normalized, but it shouldn't be normal. Anyway, I yield the floor.
That sounds like it might be a good shaping culture idea. Maybe another idea needs to be written and shared with the world. Okay. Anybody else would like to speak before closing remarks? Then I call for closing remarks. Let's do that. Let's see. Who would like to? Kay, are you over there? Would you like to lead us through closing remarks?
Yes, I can. All right. I will start with Jose. Would you like to give us your closing remarks?
Okay. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation, and sorry for having arrived late. I'm in Mexico City, and the universal basic income was proposed by a political party in the recent elections. That party lost. I don't know the details of how this was planned to be implemented in Mexico, but it sounded to me, I mean, at first sight, it sounded to me like a very good policy. And what's the host's name? Cesare?
Cesare.
Cesare.
Yeah.
Thank you. He mentioned several advantages that were an outcome of this policy, like reduced deflation and diminishing crime and so on. So this is the first time I meet in a group like this. So I would like to ask you about some very basic links to watch or to go to in order to refresh my knowledge of economics. I took economics at the university, but it was like 3 years ago, so I'm a little bit rusty. Anybody could give me a link to update economics and, I don't know, politics?
Just Google.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Tang.
Yeah, just Google the topic you're interested in. You can go to Google Scholar.
Okay, thank you.
Nice. So thank you for that, Tang. Would you like to offer some closing remarks?
I think this is quite a fruitful discussion. I'm impressed by the range of topics that have been covered just based on universal basic income. So I would like to continue this discussion in next time. Thank you very much.
Okay, great, thank you. Kathleen, your closing remarks, please.
I just came into this place not too long ago, but it's interesting in the sense of debt. I mean, everybody should watch your debt. If they can, if at all possible. Because I think it's better to be out of debt than in debt. I was in debt for years, but I paid off a loan. But unfortunately, I'm unemployed now, so I hope I don't go back into debt again. Hopefully not.
Yes, I agree. It's good to be out of debt. Yes, thank you, Kathleen. Ilya, your closing remarks?
Yeah, so my closing remarks that I've learned today about how people react to like this idea in particular, how it's how the environment updates what people think about it, and kind of idea may stay the same, but the reality changes and people maybe the like people's thinking will update it. Are you?
Yes. Yes, thank you, Ilya. And Al Hassan, do you have any closing remarks? And I apologize if I pronounced it incorrectly. Al Hassan, Al Hassan Abdul Razarak. Okay, you might have a little trouble hearing me. I'll come back. Lois, do you have any closing remarks?
Thank you, Kay. Yes, I also came in late, but I do appreciate the discussion and the input of the people that I've heard. As I said earlier, I came from Citizen Assembly Women. It's another meeting in this network associated with Agora. I just wanted to put the link to our meeting in the chat. The next topic for the 25th of April will be on school uniforms. It starts at the same time this one does, 11 a.m. New York time. And anyone here is welcome to join. It is Citizen Assembly Women, but you don't need to be a woman to be a woman. Just beware that it is tailored to that demographic. So thank you very much. I yield.
Great, thank you, Lois. Okay, so I was updated. I was using the wrong name. I apologize. Abdul, can you please share with us your closing remarks? All right, and I'm sorry, I probably misunderstood your Marcus in the chat. We're glad to have you here as well. And I believe that this is, I would be next. Okay, I'll offer my closing remarks. So I as well joined the meeting later, but I am still learning about basic income and understanding debt. I know it's a very popular topic that I should have more knowledge about, and economics. So hopefully I'll have more knowledge to have more feedback for meetings in the future. So I yield the floor to Cesare in your closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Kay, for leading us through this. I just want to address Jose's question. There are some very interesting videos, because there have been some really interesting experiments with the UBI. So you could look that up. I mean, actually, one of the things that I've been wanting to do, because now in Agora you can post comments on ideas. You can comment on ideas. One of the things this is what I've been so excited about, is that actually this recording, I'm going to link the this video on YouTube to this idea, so that people who are reading this idea in Agora can then go and read the see this link, watch this video, and maybe organize their own meetings, their own discussions to contribute to the discussion on the UBI. But people have shared with me some really good stuff, and I think Ilya has shared a really good, if I remember correctly, a really good video on the UBI. So that stuff is out there. I don't remember what it is, but so yeah, you can definitely find it. Regarding economics in general, I just recommend you go to your local community college and you sign up for a course, or because this stuff is so I love it, but it just kind of kills me that I don't have more time to actually just do nothing but study economics to understand it a lot better. But the last thing I wanted to say is that, you know, we're here to actually not just discuss these ideas, but to organize and mobilize to make these ideas real. So I do encourage everyone to support this idea in Agora if you haven't already. Again, we need candidates. We need people who will step up and actually run for office on these platforms. You know, let's help each other and get each other elected and make these ideas real. So please do step up in whatever capacity you can. And the last one more thing is I want to invite you all to my ideological profile. I think I have a bunch of other good ideas that y'all can check out. And if you think you have better ideas, please do share them with me. So that's it for my closing remarks. Am I the last one, Kay? Is that yes?
Yes, you are. Mhm, yes.
Awesome. So closing remarks being over, this meeting is